It's some things that work in a week. It's some things that take 5 years. And it's all patience. Like, patience is really relative depending on what the goal is and what you want. But like, sometimes it takes 5 years, sometimes it takes 1, sometimes it takes 10.
A coming-of-age story is defined as a time of an adolescent's life when they find their place in the world. In media, we know this to be films or TV shows focused on a main character grappling with the realization that childhood is nearing its end, and that epiphany can come with its set of challenges like rebelliousness or an almost melancholic approach to life. In coming-of-age stories, we rarely see how this plays with themes of apathy or existentialism, though we have seen it portrayed in some instances. These feelings are not reflected in characters at that stage of life because while it can be a solemn realization, there is still some type of optimism. These feelings are not reflected in characters at that stage of life because while it can be a solemn realization, there is still some type of optimism. This almost saccharine, cathartic feeling we have knowing that the character will find their way. As many people have found once they live through that period of life, that there's a myriad of different paths for the character to take. The beginning of their life starts now. It's a stark comparison to stories focused on characters transitioning from their 20s to their 30s. For the spiritual girlies out there, you might call it a Saturn return. It's a restricting time of life that pushes a person to question every decision they've made thus far. You've seen this narrative play out numerous times in shows in the 2010s. Characters defined by their rebelliousness from the generation before them. And you might say that's no different than any story before, since we are defined by universal experiences. However, it is. Characters in the 2010s pushed past the boundary of how much vulnerability was shown to audiences, a vulnerable introspective point of view shrouded with a knack for dry sense of humor and with a purpose of achieving great things, even if those motivations were not always clear at that moment. Those characters permeated itself through movies, TV shows, and music of that era. And there's one example that exemplified all of this, and was able to inspire a new generation that would carry the torch of nihilistic irony and embrace an ostentatious and zanier way of portraying stories and art to the world.
I'm Barbara Walters. I'm an eagle. You're not an eagle. You're an adult man. I'm an eagle.
Just to be clear, this video isn't just about Chromacopia. It's about what albums gave inspiration to this album. It's about why I believe this album exemplifies Tyler the Creator's footing in the world. In other words, I believe Chromacopia is a coming-of-age story.
All my life, I've really liked syrup. I just liked eating waffles all day.
Have you ever had bacon and syrup?
I'm not finished.
So this is editing Tyra here, and I realized as I was editing that I didn't really explain what I think a coming-of-age album is. I was watching this video and it was talking about Bruno Mars and like his impact in music, and the two people they were talking about how 24K Magic, he describes it almost like a coming-of-age album. So I know this is kind of like an unlikely comparison given the history between the two.
Pretty bold things about Bruno Mars. Any regrets? And he wants you back?
Oh, this guy wants a good story. No, I still hate that dude's music. He put on a good performance, but I still hate his music.
But one thing I know is that they were talking about is how Bruno, when he was promoting 24K Magic, how it was almost, he was describing how he thought being more so an adult would be. He's like describing his childhood and how it meant to like, and his connection to music and how music informs his decisions about love and like what it means to be in love as an adult. And I think that kind of feeds into like what I'm trying to convey with the idea of a coming of age. I think that coming of age albums are marked by a sense of innocence, or that could be that loss of innocence, reclaiming that, whatever that means. and just kind of interpreting what the world means to you from that younger point of view, and whether you decide to take that with you or you decide to push it away. These are some other examples I was thinking of when it comes to a coming of age album. I also have another big example towards the end of the video, so stay tuned for that. But that's all I have to say about this. On to the rest of the video. A lot of discourse I've seen on Chromacopia is that it is some sort of amalgamation of his previous albums, most notably Igor. It's Igor where most fans could see Tyler's growth as an artist, a departure from music that was idiomatic of online culture at that time. Steeped in moody and at times specializing in shock value, it's his most critically acclaimed album at this point of his career, and it's the album that would win him his first Grammy. It's the album where Tyler would become more vulnerable about his personal life, more specifically, his love life. From the use of production to themes and his use of a character to personify the theme of the album, we've seen other iterations play out in Tyler's other projects, but this is the time it came into fruition as an artist. Given the theme of the album, First Love, dealing with unrequited love, a breakup album, most people will see this as not only a coming-of-age album, but also the first time that Tyler would come into his own as an artist. But I would argue it's not Igor, and I'll explain that later on. But rather, Flower Boy would be Tyler's first attempt in this territory. Flower Boy is one of Tyler's critically acclaimed albums and his introduction into the pop world. The album has singles Who Dat Boy, Garden Shit, and most notably See You Again, featuring Kali Uchis. The album covers themes like love, loneliness, and boredom. Listening to this album feels like getting off a bus and realizing you just spent the whole day with your friends and realize the whole day escaped you and now all you have to do is walk home. It's the perfect soundtrack to describe the minutiae of everyday life, especially coming from a teenager, which makes sense why I listened to this album a lot when I was younger. See You Again is one of Tyler's most popular songs, and it really serves as an introduction to Tyler's use of dreamy chords paired with sweet lyrics of first love. The album ends with a call to action to live in the moment, which is what many coming-of-age stories have come to be. It's a departure from his earlier work, but not for long. We'll see a blend of styles in Tyler's later work. That takes us to...
What is your name? You're wonderful to gaze at.
Igor is the first album that gave Tyler his first #1. He also won his first Grammy. Igor is his most vulnerable side of Tyler when it comes to... Igor is a more vulnerable side of Tyler when it comes to love. Igor talks about a love triangle between Tyler, his love interest, and his love interest partner. Tyler talks about his excitement when it comes to finding love, as well as his vengeance when his love interest doesn't give him the answers he wants or is expecting. One of the most heartbreaking songs on this album and on his discography to me is Puppet. In Puppet, Tyler talks about how his love interest has left him feeling paralyzed and that he's at the whim of whatever his love interest wants to do. It's a complete 180 from what we see in Tyler's persona in his music. In this song, he lacks agency, is completely dependent on what his lover wants.
Increments by 10% and don't forget the chips and dip and fish and shrimp.
Call Me If You Get Lost is different than the rest, employing genres like 90s boom bap, dance hall, as well as Tyler's signature sound. It's his most ambitious and experimental album in my opinion. Call Me If You Get Lost is different than the rest, employing genres like 90s boom bap, dance hall, as well as Tyler's signature sound. We'll see Tyler continue to dabble in other genres in Chromacopia, and we send a turn at accepting the roles of an adult, albeit in an idealistic way, in Call Me If You Get Lost.
Are you putting another filter on me? You think it's so funny, huh? Funny.
I feel like Tyler's work has always had a childlike edge to it, if that makes any sense. A definable whimsiness. We even go as far as comparing Chromacopia to Good Cat, Mad City, given that both are similar in regards to coming-of-age stories. But in Chromacopia, the weight of adulthood is almost deafening, as we learn how Tyler reacts to the results of his actions, as well as gain insight into his beliefs, which are more concrete, unwavering, even unconventional for what is expected of him from his family or even his fans. For instance, in Darling I, Tyler talks about coming to terms with not being monogamous and learning to be okay with that.
Meaning behind it was really sort of a catch in me learning that, you know, when I thought I was my most wise, really not wise at all. Humility, you know, and in those places that most people wouldn't expect a lesson to come from, that's where I learned so much. And, you know, and so I termed the phrase miseducation, you know, not because it was a miseducation per se, but just because it was sort of contrary to what the world says is education, you know. It was this education that came from life and experience.
The concept of a coming-of-age story is actually connected to another album that I loved growing up, which was The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill. I'm not going to dive too much into her backstory, or also not get into her scandals, because I don't see that's relevant. But just to give a background, if you don't know who Miss Hill is, Lauryn Hill is a singer and rapper from Newark, New Jersey, who rose to fame in the early 90s through her work with the Fugees and then later on with her solo career. She became a prominent figure in the burgeoning subgenre neo-soul and also as a female rapper. She is most known for songs like Do Wop That Thing, X Factor, Everything's Everything, and her re-edition of a Roberta Flack classic, Killing Me Softly. This is strictly to talk about the themes of this album and how I believe it ties into the concepts I've been talking about the rest of this video. So at work, I'm basically in the zone most of the time, which prompts me to listen to music as I'm working, and one day I just decided to listen to The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill. I listened to this album a lot when I was younger, and I remember absolutely loving it, and I listened to it all the time. As I got older and started listening to other types of music and artists, I didn't listen to it as much as I used to, even though songs like Do Wop That Thing and X Factor were a constant in my household. Listening to it again as a whole made me realize it's pretty good. It's a great album and deserved the accolades it received. This album does have songs depicting the relationship between Miss Hill and her groupmate Wyclef Jean, the fact that has sparked intrigue within hip-hop spaces and just fans of Miss Hill. Others might describe it as an album heavily influenced by the Black experience, which is an extension of themes that Miss Hill and her group members explored in the 90s rap group The Fugees, and others might call it even a spiritual album. Spirituality has always been ubiquitous with Miss Hill and her image that dates back to even when she starred in the movie Sister Act. These takes have all lived separately when describing this album, and after another listen, I think all of those themes coincide with each other. In a lot of ways, this album feels like an affirmation of oneself. In the album, Miss Hill talks about experiences that shaped her, like in songs Everything is Everything and Every Ghetto, Every City. She talks about the birth of her first child in the song Zion. She talks about her breakup in multiple songs. My favorite songs is I Used to Love Him. I'm not explicitly saying the two are comparable as far as subject matter, but I believe in a lot of ways it exemplifies a real coming-of-age album and asserting who you are in the world.
Bro, it's some things that work in a week. It's some things that take 5 years. Like, patience is really relative depending on what the goal is and what you want, but like, sometimes it takes 5 years, sometimes it takes 1, sometimes it takes 10. I got boys that I know that the first year they came out, man, they had it all. Jets, awards, accolades, the whole thing, and it took me much longer than them to hit that pocket, but I'm grateful and happy for it, and like, I wouldn't have had it no other way. And I guess that's easy to say now that I hit whatever I'm comparing that to, but sometimes it takes a week, sometimes it takes 5 years. At that point, it just depends on the person.
For the most part, since Flower Boy, Tyler has always ended his albums with a slower tempo song, often giving the listener open-ended questions. This leads fans to theorize of what themes he might explore in his next project, and it's usually the complete opposite, which is good, because it remains fresh and the sign of a talented storyteller. The coming-of-age film, it references callbacks and Easter eggs for Tyler's fans, and provides a glimpse into how he's grown as an artist, and may provide hints into what's to come next. If you made it to the end of this video, I am so very thankful. Please leave your favorite song from Chromacopia in the comments, or just your favorite Tyler the Creator song. And I will see you in the next video. What would you say is your favorite coming of age album, if you have one at all? It doesn't matter the genre, it doesn't matter the artist. Just leave it in the comments below.